Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Flyera, Gonna Flyer, our 17th episode. We got a good one for you guys today. Joining me is one of my gracious co-hosts, Eric, aka Filibuster10 on Twitter. How you doing today, buddy?
Not too bad, Alex. Could be better, but we do what we can. We take it as it comes, and just ready for another week.
Another week, another day, another dollar, another day closer to whatever we're trying to accomplish in life, right? Or
Yeah,
not.
or not.
Depending who you're asking. But yeah, anyway, so we had first of all, I will say Jamey will not be joining us this week. He's got some personal stuff he got to deal with his family. So it's going to be me and Eric giving it you the show this week. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We recorded last Friday, so the episode release was Saturday. So since then, the Flyers have played 5 games, 3 wins, 2 losses. Should probably swap those numbers, but been a up and down week. I'll say better, but not quite where you want to be. But we're going to go over all these games, starting with the Minnesota Wild game. Flyers. That was definitely the most exciting of the 5 games, I'd say, over the last 8 days, where the Flyers took on Minnesota. Um, Pretty wild game there, just in general. No goaltending by either team whatsoever. Offensive output left and right. Mitchkov had a 2-point game. Couturier got his first career hat trick in the regular season. That's his. He does have a playoff one from when he was 19 in 2012. Konechny had a 5-point day. I think Tippett had 2 assists. 7-5 final was the score in this one. And like I said, it was back and forth all game. Flyers jumped up 2-0, and then Minnesota just started a shooting brigade where this game was tied at 3 going into the second, and the Flyers were outshot 21-6 despite this. 6 shots on net in 2 periods is not great, but it is absolutely astonishing when you find a way to put 3 of them in the net. Talk about quality over quantity. Third period came along, and after going 3 shots in each of the first 2 periods, they put up 17 in the third out of nowhere. Probably their best offensive period of the year. And then they outscored Minnesota 4-2 in the third. Goals from Ristolainen in that third. Mitchkov's goal came in the second, so not him. Couturier, I believe, had 2 in that period, finished off the hat trick. But yeah, that game overall was a good one. Eric, any thoughts on the game against the Wild?
Well, that game was also like a big issue with the Flyers lately, and like most of the season so far is these slow starts. And like you mentioned, it's like we're never ready to play. It just seems like we get into the first, it's sloppy. We're not taking shots. And then same thing. Second, we were outscored 3-1 in the second period. Something that I think we brought up on this podcast earlier, maybe even a couple of weeks
Second
ago.
period issues.
What's going on? Second periods, we're just getting destroyed. I think now the goal differential after today's game, I'm not 100% sure, but I know it was a -12 after the last game. So that's terrible. You can't be -12 this early in the season in one period. Like that's a big concern. And one thing also, that was Zamula's last game played. So
I haven't missed him.
so that no, not at all. And you know what? Like I've always considered myself a bit of a Zamula defender. And because you see the potential, it's there. The kid has the size, even though he's not super physical, but like it still helps. He has that size back there, and he's shown signs on the power play and stuff like that. But like this year, he's been like a bit of a turnover machine, and
especially on the power play. He's done that at least 2 or 3 times in the power play. I think he gave up 2 shorties.
Against Washington.
2 weeks
right.
ago. Yeah.
And like maybe one of them, you wouldn't put 100% on him, but he was still involved in that play, So, and also like I don't know if you've noticed, but like I find like that the Risto Zamula pair in the preseason, right? It showed some signs of promise, but then once the season started, they looked lost, they looked confused, they weren't playing well together, and I was starting to question, like, oh my God, Risto, like this is a guy that we might want to trade at a certain point, and he's not looking super great. But now look at Risto since he's been off of Zamula, he's not paired with Zamula no more.
Helps when you get rid of the anchor.
Right? So it's like him and Sinai, like, well, they've had chemistry before in the past. But like to be night and day like that with like after you break up a pair and you pair him with somebody else, and he's getting elevated minutes too, right? So with Zamula, he was playing as a third. It was pretty much your de facto third pair. Now he's on the first pair and he's exceeding expectations. Ristolainen. So that was my biggest kind of takeaway from the Minnesota game. Like they pulled it off at the end there. They had a big third period. It started a bit towards the end of the second, but big third, and we got the win. You know, that was great. So, yeah.
Game, well, I will say that third period gave me a little bit of hope for what was to come. So next night, you come into got a home and home with the Montreal Canadiens. It was more of the same early on. Team just, I mean, they out of the gate they looked a little bit better, even though they scored 2 goals against Minnesota in like the first 4 or 5 minutes, and then kind of just stopped doing anything of note on offense. They looked a little bit better to start against Montreal. It's a little back and forth until they allow a goal about a little over halfway through the first. Go down in that game 1-0. Montreal just Flyers tie it late in the first. I think it was Travis Sanheim that scored from a nice point shot. I think it went off of a body on someone on Montreal's end. Montreal then has a big second period, as per usual. Flyers' second periods completely plagued this team. Allow 3 goals in the second. Suddenly, 4-1 halves. Flyers, again, were getting killed on the rush, which is something that they were killing teams on last year. I think 2 of the halves goals in that period came on the rush. Bad second period. Third period, it was pretty lifeless until the final 3 minutes when they potted 2 goals in about 35 seconds to get this thing 4-3. And then they had a high-octane blast. They pressured Primo a little bit, but they couldn't put the final goal in. Habs win that game 4-3. And it's, again, a lot of the same crap. The start was slightly better, but not anything noticeably better, like a lot better. Second period, just killed on the rush, couldn't finish opportunities. Defense, again, having consistent breakdowns. It was Kolosov's first game, so I'm not going to put too much blame on him. And I thought he looked decent in net. Like, he did allow 1 goal I wish he could have had back in that period. But other than that, I thought for the most part he wasn't too bad. Good in the third to at least not let this thing get out of hand and give the Flyers that opportunity to try to make it a little bit of a comeback late in the third, which they almost did. Couldn't quite finish the job. But overall, big issue again, as you just mentioned, in the Wild game, horrible second period, as I'm sounding like a broken record right now. This team just seems like when they get out of the lockers in the second, it's a complete ice tilt, and they don't look like themselves. They're just constantly killed on the rush. It's like that today, but we'll get over that. We'll go over that in that Bruins game when it comes to it. But yeah, what's your thoughts on it?
Honestly, like I have pretty much the exact same thing, like you said. Completely lifeless. Like there was no energy whatsoever to that Montreal game. They played. They literally, in my opinion, they played like 3 minutes that whole game. Like the last, maybe the 3 minutes at the end, maybe like 1 minute when like Sanheim scored, and the last 2 minutes of the game when they tried to make a little comeback. But that's it. Like Kolosov, yeah, like he was pretty good. He was solid. Like the only one I could say, like you mentioned, maybe like the Cole Caulfield goal where it kind of like snuck through it. He should have been maybe a little closer to the post.
Yeah, he could have played the post better. That's probably been my take on. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to add one thing. There's probably one negative I can put on Kolosov's game so far. These first 2 games, I think he needs to hug the post a little bit better. But continue. Sorry for interrupting.
No, but like at the end of the day, right? Like you're facing Cole Caulfield, and like if he's gonna pick his spot, he's gonna pick his spot, right? So like I think if I'm not mistaken, he's tied for the league right now in goals on the season. So look, what can I say? Like honestly, I can't really say much about the Montreal game because there's like I didn't think anybody really played well. Maybe Sanheim stood out a little bit, but other than that, I thought the whole team was just sleepwalking through the whole thing, and then too little, too late at the end, trying to make a little push. But guys, man, we have to play 60 minutes. Like you play 3 periods of 20 minutes. If you only show up the last 2 minutes of the game, like you're not gonna win. It's as easy as that. And it's not like we're playing a juggernaut team. We're playing the Canadians, who are pretty much in the same situation as we are. They're in a rebuild. and like they're missing a couple of guys, and like we're playing their backup goalie in Primo. Like we're not even playing Montembeault. So it's like, come on, get some shots at net, put some pressure on this guy. Like it was just like one shot here, a shot there, and it's like, and again, like we said, second periods, they were out. This one they were outscored 3-0 in the second period. Like, come on, guys, wake up. That's what I have to say. That game was, come on, guys, wake up. Let's figure something out.
I want to mention something too. It always seems like, and this is just another installment with Caden Primo, the Flyers seem like they always make backup goalies look good. It's a tale as old as time. Backup goalies just seem like they always have get-right games against the Flyers. Caden Primo seems like he always has. He's one of the backups. It seems like he always has success against the Flyers. Even last year, too, when they played them in the first game of the year, Flyers dominated the first game they played against Montreal. But Caden Primo kept them in it and even sent that game to a shootout. It was a goalie game. Flyers won it, but even then, like, it was something I absolutely noticed. Caden Primo stood on his head that game. But I look at one other thing I do want to mention. It was Emil Adrane's first game of the year, and he looked solid. And he was one of the guys I can give a positive +2 in that game. Travis Sanheim, as I mentioned, I thought he played well. But the forwards, I think that was one of Mitchkov's worst games since he's been here. It wasn't terrible, but for his standards, it wasn't Mitchkov-esque. I will say that. Moving on to the third game, the Bruins game. 2 words: shot blocking. That is all I have to say about this game. This team, the whole game that stood out to this game, Nick Seeler, this is Nick Seeler's best game of the year. No questions asked. He was the best Flyer on the ice against the Bruins in that first game. He was a shot-blocking machine, and it wasn't just that. Even Jamey Drysdale, I think, had 4 blocks. I think Risto had 4 blocks. I think the Flyers had 27, 28 block shots for the entire game. The Bruins could not get shots through, and that is all I can say. Flyers had a 2-0 shutout win in this game. Again, not a great offensive effort, but Tyson Forster absolutely sniped one 5-hole under Corpusello's legs in the second period to put the Flyers up 1-0. After a pretty lethargic back and forth first, it wasn't too much high energy play, but again, Flyers didn't get 7 or 8 block shots in that first period too. It was the absolute story of this game. They were just in front of the net, blocking shots, not letting the Bruins get high quality opportunities. Now, mind you, I will say this, the Bruins have not looked good, at least up to that point this year. They were not getting consistent offensive opportunities too. A lot of the high-end guys aren't really showing up early on. But the Flyers, you got to give them credit. They were just not letting them get anything high quality in front of the net. They were getting in front of lanes. Ersson was solid. He stopped when he needed to stop. He blanked them. That is the first win in regulation in Boston since October of 2011. Literally 13 years and a month. That's astonishing. And to go a step further, that's the first shutout in Boston since 2006. 2 little crazy statistics right there. I've gone to one of the – so I live in Massachusetts, as I'm sure a lot of you know. I've gone to one of the few Bruins-Flyers games that the Flyers have actually won in Boston. They don't happen often. I've witnessed, I think, probably 3 in the regular season as I've gone over the last 12, 13 years. One of them – 2 of them were in overtime and 1 was a shootout. That was it. That's all it seemed like they can win. That was just what looked like a nice get-right game. The best defensive effort all year. That was probably not they didn't play fantastic, but defensively they played a near perfect game in my opinion. To you.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're right. And like you know what? Like, wow, when I heard that, I was like, how? How do you go over a decade without a regulation? And it's not like this is a West team where we play like once a year, It's like that amazing. But then again, you think about it too, right? Like the Flyers kind of started their like downs, like the 2010s were not great for the Flyers, the 1 year in, 1 year out,
They were mediocre.
Exactly. It was the mediocre period of the Flyers.
Yeah.
Plus you had that's when Boston they had just won their cup and they were a powerhouse-ish team. So, I guess it kind of makes sense in a vacuum, but yeah, no, 100%. Like, I think the Flyers had to change something up. Like the way they were playing up to that point, it wasn't sustainable. Like they weren't, their coverage wasn't great, and so I think they decided that, I don't know if Torts gave them a speech, or they all got together and decided, hey guys, we got to close this up. We got to lock it down. If we can't win if we're not able to outscore teams. So you know what? If we got to win 1-0, if we got to win 2-1, that's the way it's got to be. So yeah, because like if you look at it, like up to that point, a lot of the goals against were like slot area tips.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you know what I'm saying, like it would always be like a goal off a stick, a goal off a shin pad, a goal off a skate, and it's always a puck across right into the slot off something in the net.
Yeah.
So you know what? Let's block a bunch of shots. Let's not give them anything. If we could keep the shots to the outside and hope for the best. And I think that's what they did. That's what they have to do because the way the offense is going right now, like a lot of guys are like, Frost can't buy a goal right now. Like I feel bad for the kid in a way. It's like open nets. He's missing. Tippett's just ripping it like 4 or 5 shots a game and just can't get one either. Well, what's his name? Forster got one the other day, so that was pretty good. But I think that's what we're gonna have to do if we want to win some games this year. That's what we're gonna have to. We're just gonna have to shut it down, and that's the way we're gonna have to play. Block a bunch of shots and hope for the best.
It feels like Claude Julien-esque hockey trying to win games 2-1, and it is so fucking boring. Oh. I hate it. I'm going to go on a quick rant about that. Claude Julien hockey makes me want to pull my hair out. It's just like watching 2 snails just trying to race, and you just waiting there for 15 minutes reading a book and seeing them move about 5 inches. I can't do Claude Julien-esque hockey, especially with the way the league is nowadays, where teams are just scoring at will. And it's not – you're going to have to get some level of offensive output, or you're going to make me want to pull my beautiful hair out. That's balling. No, but not to get too off topic. But, yeah, that game, though, I will say defensively they played solid. Moving over to the next game, St. Louis Blues. I will say this is – you ever have one of those games you watch, and even though the game is so competitive, you just don't have the feel that the team is in danger? I feel like that game against the Blues, even when the Blues tied it, I didn't have that feel that the Flyers were going to lose this game. Flyers won this game 2-1, for those who didn't really know. First period, Ryan Poehling made an absolute, completely undressed 3 players on the Blues. It was the best play probably any Flyers forward has made all year. And I've been very critical of Poehling the early parts of the season, but it looks like he's finally starting to find his game again. Over the last handful of games, he's playing like the Poehling we knew last year, and it really came to show on this play. Splitting by 3 defenders, great puck handling on a cross-crease one-timer and a half away, pots it by Binnington. Flyers take a 1-0 lead. Solid period. Not fantastic, but solid. Second period, PK was good. I think the Blues had a few power plays that period, if I remember correctly, but the PK looked good. Defensively, they look solid again, but they weren't getting that many high-octane opportunities again. It just felt like a little bit kind of like that Bruins game. Third period comes along. Ersson's shutout streak of over 100 minutes ends. It's a rebound that's just potted in by Nathan Walker to tie the game at 1. A little bit of back-and-forth hockey, but again, it never had that feel that the Flyers weren't in control of this one. And even in a game that was tied at 1, it just felt like they were playing like the better team. And it finally showed late in the third. Pass by Lockwood. Brink beats Binnington 5-hole to put them up 2-1 late in the third with about 3 minutes to go. Flyers didn't look back and win this game there. I think they played a very smooth game there. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was a little bit of mixture of just them playing confident and the shot blocking that came along from the last game with Boston. I looked at that game and I just said, you know what? I feel like they're making a little bit of strides. Maybe they're playing a little bit of identity defensively at least. It's something to look forward to possibly. We'll talk about the last game in a second, but I looked at this and I said, defensively, something's forming there. What do you have to say?
No, I thought the St. Louis game was pretty much almost like a carbon copy of the Boston game. Mm-hmm. Just very structured hockey, very disciplined hockey. Mm-hmm. We're gonna do what we can. It's gonna be a little vent, but you know what? We'll fight. We'll get a way to win. And I thought they actually had a few more chances in the St. Louis game again than the first Boston game. Yeah. And I thought Binnington actually played a really good game because there was a couple of plays he made, man. It went a couple went right off the collarbone. Like, Come on, like you just needed that extra like half an inch, and a couple guys could have broke their slumps, but look, in the end, we ended up getting the win, and like I said before, if we want to win games, unfortunately, right now, the way things are going, the way guys are gripping their sticks, this is the way. This is the way we're gonna have to play, and this is the way we're gonna win games.
It's going to have to be defensively, but like you can't do this all year. That's for sure. They're high guys. You just paid Tippett in the actually, I'm going to wait. Actually, I'm going to wait this rant until we talk about the last game. Bruins game today, final game. Okay, so Ersson starts this game, looks solid. Hence the name of this episode, Ersson's Strong Week. He played great this week. And 2 in 6 games. He played about half of the first period, and he went 8 for 8 to start this game. The Bruins looked like they were better right out the gate, and makes a stop, hits his skate. Skate comes dislodged, blows the whistle. We go to commercial. Come back. Alexei Kolosov suddenly in that. What the hell's going on? Ersson leaves the game, doesn't return, and I will say Kolosov played solid today. I'm not going to give him any crap. Bruins won this game 3-0. There's really nothing offensively to talk about. They had a few okay chances. It was a 2-0 with Tippett and Frost with a little cross-crease one-timer where it didn't look like Frost got all of it, but it looked like he got enough where he should have scored, and Korpisalo just absolutely stoned him. There was a few other good bids. Brink had a point-blank opportunity. They had a play on the rush when Michkov fed Sanheim, and Sanheim decides for some reason from 13 feet out says, I'm going to go to the backhand, and fucking winks it fucking 12 feet over the net. I saw that. I'm like, bro, shoot it forehand. I get this friggin' traffic in front of the net, but you should not be going backhand with from that far out. Put that shit forehand and let it rip. You have 60% of the net open on a fucking thing, opportunity off the rush. What do you know? The Bruins go the other way. A weird play up by Patras behind the net goes off of what looks like Kolosov's leg and goes in the back of the net. He could have been in the post a little bit quicker, as I mentioned in that first game that he played. Kind of showed his weary head again here. And then the second goal he allowed was just more Marchand, for some reason, bullying Ristolainen. I can't believe I witnessed that. Risto did not have a good game at all today. I have to say that. As good as Risto's been lately, today was, in my opinion, his worst game of the year. He got bullied by Marchand, who's probably about 40 pounds smaller than him, and 5 to 6 inches smaller. Let that sink in. And he found Barzot, who rips a one-timer past Kolosov. That's on Ristolainen. He's got to be better on the puck there. Got to be better on Marchand. Can't allow that to happen. Flyers got a few opportunities in the second and the third, but it never really felt like they sustained much pressure. Even when they did, felt like they just kept burping the puck up out of their own end. They get shut out 3-0 today after an empty netter seals the deal. Same issues. They are not doing anything offensively, and that has to change. In your last 4 games, you've scored 6 goals now. That's not cutting it. One of them being an empty netter. You can't have that. You need more from your offensive guys. You just paid Tippett a bag this offseason. 8 years, little over $6 million. I thought was a great contract at first. He's got 1 goal right now. That has to change. He's got to put more on the net. My bold prediction at the beginning of the year is I thought this guy was going to get well over 30 goals. He's not showing that. He's not going to get that the way he's playing. I know he's been a little bit of a streaky guy, but he's got to show more. He should have at least 4 or 5 goals at this point. Konechny has 5. He's been fine. I'm not going to give him too much crap. I wish he'd had a little bit more. Michkov has been feeding these guys left and right. At this point, I want Michkov to fire the puck more. He's doing a great job playmaking. He's feeding his guys. He had probably 3 chances today where he could have picked up an assist. Sanheim had 1 opportunity, couldn't bury. Couturier had another one close in front of the net that it felt like it just hopped over. He just flat out missed the net, or probably about 8-9 feet away. There was one other one. I can't remember. Maybe it was Farabee. Or Tippett. I don't remember who had the last one. There was 3 opportunities today that the Flyers had chances off of Michkov. Adrane. That's who it was. Yeah. Adrane at least got the puck on the net. I will give him that. It was just a good save by Korpisalo, but he made a great play, stick handling, and find Adrane off the rusher. Adrane got a good shot. It was just a good save by Korpisalo. But the Couturier opportunity and the Sanheim opportunity, one of those has to go in, especially the Sanheim one. But it's just today's story is not getting enough offensively. The last Going back to the Capitals game on Wednesday, their last 5 games, they have not eclipsed more than 26 shots. No. That's bad. That cannot happen. You need to find a way to get more rubber on the net. You had 20 against, I believe, today. You had, I believe, 21 against the Blues. You had 19 against the Bruins. You had, I think, 26. You had 23 against the Wild, and I think 26 the game against the Canadiens. That needs to change. You have to find a way to get more rubber on the net. Last year, they were doing that. Last year, this team felt like they were putting up 30-plus shots on the regular, consistently. Some games in the 40s. That's one of the big things that is standing out to me this year. These fuckers are not putting any rubber on the net. You have to find, even if you're not getting high-quality bids, go for some quantity. Throw something at the net. Get a stick on it. Try to play for a rebound. 100% of the shots you take do not go in, as Wayne Gretzky says. That needs to fucking change. Put some rubber on the net. Even if it's an ugly shot, even if it's a low-quality bid, try to put a stick on it. Play for a rebound. You never know what the fuck's going to happen. Get some rubber on
the net. No, that's it. You know, for a team supposedly full of shooters and full of snipers, like, we're not scoring. Like, it doesn't make sense. It like I said, Tippett, what, 1 goal on the season? Forster's got 2. Like, come on. Like, it's insane. It doesn't make sense. Either we're missing wide or we're missing, or if we do shoot, it's right in the goalie's gut. And like you said earlier,
that's happened way too much.
We're making a bunch of backup goalies look like $10 million starters. Like, look, it's 2 games we play against Boston. We didn't even play Swayman. We played Korpisalo twice. And Korpisalo has looked amazing both games. Like, now, like, is it just him that's like, who found his game, or are we just making these guys look unbeatable? Like,
I think it's a little of both.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, but like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, even like sustained pressure in the zone, like we get into the offensive zone, and then we're losing it like 10 seconds later. And what hurt us, this game especially, like the second game against Boston, actually a couple of times where we had sustained pressure in the zone, the second it goes back the other way, it was in the back of our net. So you're like, there's no winning. Like, at a certain point, you're like, what do we have to do? You know? So I don't know. Something has to change. I don't know if maybe like Torts should we switch to a dump and chase? Like, honestly, I don't know at this point. Like, I don't know. Like, would that be better? Because obviously, gaining entry into the zone, we get it in and then we lose it. Or so I don't know.
I feel like we'll be going back to Peter Laviolette hockey, except without the high skill guys. If we do that, we don't have enough high skill, enough guys, or enough physicality to really do enough jump and chase. The Flyers are one of the smallest teams in the league. I don't know if they do that. It's gonna get ugly. I really hope not, but they may have to change something. Maybe they do give it a shot. I don't know what they're doing right now, but offensively, we need to see more.
No, but we definitely do. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. Any closing thoughts on the week before we move on?
One thing that's a little bit concerning is our power play. Our power play that started off really strong. We were, the first 2 games of the season against Montreal, 0 for 3. Mm-hmm. Against Boston, 0 for 4. Against St. Louis, 0 for 3. Today, they were it said 0 for 3, but I think the last one, I don't know if I'll count it as. So let's say 0 for 2. Just for
we'll call it 0 for 2.5.
So no power play goals in 4 games. In 12 or 13 opportunities.
Well,
that's got to change. Like, if we can't score 5 on 5, then we got to score on the power play. It's one or the other. So again, like if we want to find ways to win, that's a way that we got to find. Like, we got to fix our power play.
Power play has been bad.
It was so good at the beginning of the season, like it was, and now like it's gone dry, like desert dry. Like nothing. So I don't know. They got to maybe switch it up a little bit, find a little better structure. I've liked Emil Andre though. He's had some good looks on the power play. Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed this game though, I don't know if you noticed, but in the third period, I don't know if this was just Torts because we're down. He wanted to try it, but I find like Jamey Drysdale was getting double shifted, Like Eric Johnson wasn't playing at one point.
Yeah, Sealer too was sitting a little bit.
It was Emil Andre with Drysdale, and then it would be Drysdale with Sealer. Like, so it's like, I don't know. So I don't know if Johnson was hurt or if Torch just wanted to see Drysdale Andre together, which they look decent. They look pretty decent, like playing together. It's a little small as a pairing, but like if you're in an offensive zone, why not, right? You two of your probably best offensive defensemen right now. So with York out, so well, you have Sanheim, but still, Sanheim's with Risto. And I just found that really interesting. I'm like, at one point I'm watching the game, and I'm like, hold on, Drysdale's out again with Andre, and then I would see then Sanheim Risto, and then Drysdale with Sealer. Like, so anyway, I found that a little interesting. So we'll see next game what happens if maybe they become a pair. But I just found
I'm going to add to that a little bit. So we'll actually move on to the topic of Jamey Drysdale very shortly. Miladrane, I want him to stay. He looks like he fits. He fits like a glove. And they're playing in the second power play. And even though the second power play hasn't scored, it looks better. Because when the Flyers were actually scoring on the power play, the large majority of it was that first unit. The first unit was doing it. Konechny's got 3 power play goals. Michkov has 3. And I feel like, I think there's 1 or 2 other that have been spread out. But it's been mainly that first unit. The second unit has been bone dry all year. With Emil Adrane out there, it feels like they got a little bit stronger of a point presence and a good quarterback out there. I feel like they've cycled the puck better. One thing about the power play I'm going to add on to you, Morgan Frost, still win a fucking offensive zone faceoff, for the love of God. Every fucking time this team goes on a power play, Morgan Frost loses a power play, and they instantly lose 20 seconds on the power play, and they're battling to get into the offensive zone. They cannot start the power play, it just seems like, with the one face-off and setting up. Can't do it. Guess it's not allowed. They need it. I'm telling you right now, my patience is wearing thing with Frost. Like, I like the kid. I thought this was going to be his opportunity to break out. I thought him and Michkov were going to be put together, and was for a little bit, and he still wasn't doing too much. Now Michkov's playing more with Couturier, and Frost's been playing with Tippett and Forster, which is still not bad players to play with. No. Owen Tippett, if he could fucking hit a cow in the ass with a shovel for once, he'd be picking up some assists at least. But Frost can't score either. Like, Morgan Frost, if I had a down player of the week, it's him. He needs to fucking do something now. Because if not, I'm not giving this guy another contract. I'm telling him to screw. I like Frost. I know how weak their center depth is, but he needs to show me more. He has to show me more. And, it's still, we're only 3 weeks in. I get it. We could be coming back a month from now and saying, dude, Frost has turned the corner. Who knows? But he has to show me more if he wants another contract here. And the center depth's bad. I know that. If this happens, I expect 2 completely brand new centers next year. But we'll see. But yeah, on the terms of this team's power play and defense, let's start with Jamey Drysdale a little bit. One of the guys I wanted to talk about this week is him. Now, overall, I feel like he's had a rough start to the year. Now, he's been the last 2 games, I feel like he has been better. He was good in that Blues. Actually, even the last 3 games. Because at least in the Bruins game, he was providing shot blocking presence. But he felt like more of himself both today and that game against the Blues. He's been better. But he hasn't been what's been advertised. A quarterback power play, an offensive D-man who's going to provide a threat from the point, who can score from there and possibly develop. His skating is excellent, but his decision-making has been concerning. Is it? Now, he's only 22. He's got plenty of time. He's a big part of this team's future. He's the big piece you got in the Cutter Gauthier trade. So you need this guy to pan out. He's a former number 6 overall pick in the 2020 draft. And I know one thing Jamey mentioned that I think is fair. He had sports hernia surgery in the offseason, or the core muscle surgery, as it's called. And, he thinks that he stated that he doesn't think Drysdale's going to be himself until probably like January, February. And that could be valid. That could be part of it. His core might not be 100%. He might still be playing through something. But I still think his skating is great. But should we be worried about what we're getting with him? There's still time to develop. He's only 22. He's a guy that we look at that long-term is expected to be part of this team's decor. Should we be worried, or is this just part of bumps and bruises along the way?
Well, look, with Jamie Drysdale, and I thought from the beginning, since the beginning of the season in the off season, I can't base it on the first 10 games that he plays. It's a it's all about the progress with him. Because look, like the Flyers themselves have said it, right? Like this guy, he was not that he was ruined, but he wasn't developed properly.
Yeah.
So he should have never been in the league at 18 years old. It didn't make sense. Even just defensemen in general should never be in the league at 18 years old. It's one of those positions where, if you look at like a lot of defensemen, they'll come into the league at like 22, 23, and they'll hit those strides at 25. This guy's been in the league for like 3-4 years already, and he's 22 years old. So look, what I've seen from Drysdale so far is I've seen a lot of ups and I've seen a lot of downs. Okay, I thought he started the season a little more rough, but I find, like you said, like the last 2-3 games, he's really improved.
Yeah.
The only concern I have with him right now, the biggest concern I have with him is his playmaking is good, but can he bring it to another level? Okay, I was listening to this. I was listening to a podcast at one point, and I honestly I can't remember. I wish I could. I would love to give them credit, but the person had said like in junior, because his skating is so great. Like he's obviously a great skater. Okay, and in junior, because obviously the game's not as fast as the NHL, so he had that half a step or that split second more to make because of his skating to make a decision, or like if something bad would happen, he could cover up with his skating. So now that he's in the NHL, where he doesn't have that second or that to compensate, like is it maybe that like he's not as good as maybe we thought? So no,
that's a fair argument.
I'm in no way giving up on the guy. Like I honestly think he's actually pretty good. My whole thing is like maybe if I thought maybe his ceiling is first pair defenseman, what I'm seeing right now is a guy that could possibly be a really good second pair defenseman. So is that such a bad thing? No, like at the end of the day, you need these guys anyway. Obviously, it hurts because you gave away a prospect. Well, I didn't give away, but you traded a prospect like Carter Gauthier to get him. At the same time, Cutter's having a hard time. So you know what? That's a little cherry on the top of the.
Hold on. Let's all take a minute to point and laugh at Cutter. I love it. Karma's a fat, filthy whore. Sorry, continue.
So, you know what? Like, look, am I worried about Drysdale? No, I'm not. He hasn't shown me anything yet to really worry me. The only, like I said, the only concern I have is he going to really be that legitimate first pair defenseman? But you know what? Time will tell. Time will tell. Because look, one great example I'll give you right now is Brandon Montour. Okay, Brandon Montour, when he was drafted like just as highly touted as Drysdale, and look, it took him a couple stops until he got to Florida, where he developed his game and like he became the player he is now. And now look, he's a $70 million defenseman. Like he's a really good defenseman. He helped Florida win a cup. So and at one point I think in the playoffs he was like playing top pair. So look, that's the thing, especially with young defensemen and young defensemen that were rushed into the league. We got to give them time. You can't just make like 10 games into his second season with the team and you're like, oh, no, okay, he's no good. No, you can't. You have to give it time. You have to, let him develop. Let Bradshaw have time with him. Let him fix him like he fixed Risto. So hopefully, and hopefully one day he could maybe be that top pair guy. You place him with like maybe like a solid defensive left-handed defenseman and, and you let him loose. So we'll see.
I want to piggyback a little bit off of some of the stuff you said. I agree. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, it's 22. It's got plenty of time to develop. And, you make a very good point with Bradshaw and Ristolainen. Ristolainen was a raw piece when you got him here, who was highly touted in Buffalo and just was not what they wanted, not what they expected. Just complete game was just completely off in Buffalo. They did not let this guy did not develop him in general properly. Bradshaw got a hold of him, and he's now been a fantastic, legit, like on reality second pair defenseman. He's a guy that, if we move him, is going to get a lot of callers, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Jamey Drysdale, again, as we've mentioned, there's plenty of time with this, guys. There's one guy who had interviewed Tortorella, Jason Mytitis, on Twitter. You can find him at Jason MYRT. Had a talk with Tortorella, and Tortorella pretty much just said he wants to completely, I won't say overhaul his game, but let him, have him learn the game over again in a way. He wants him to look at the game different, and just learn the game the way that he feels like it needs to be learned. He wants him to pretty much erase everything that he not learned, but didn't, maybe not did, but learned in Anaheim. I kind of got the flip-flop. And just try to just start fresh and just look at him as a raw talent where you can just overhaul, maybe not even overhaul is the right word, but develop him the way you feel like that would best tout his game. Do I still think he's going to end up being a legit player in this league? Yes, I do. I asked the Jamey Drysdale question today because I saw a lot of hysteria and panic on social media. And I felt like today would be a good day to address this. I think Jamey's best quality, as I stated, is his skating. He is there was a game, I think it was against Tampa Bay last year, right? In the game he scored, I believe, his first goal, where he just showed an absolute masterclass where he goes from the blue line and just goes in an absolute circle. There was another game, too, that I will never forget, this back check that stood out. The Flyers are playing the Wild, and it was an overtime. And there was I don't know if he was the one who created the turnover or someone, but the Flyers were on a 4-on-3 power play. There was a turnover, and a Wild player had a breakaway, and Jamey Drysdale just caught right up to him, had a fantastic back check, and just ended up poking the puck from behind. Ends up being huge because the Flyers end up winning this game in overtime. So Jamey's game is still very raw. His speed is excellent. His skating is good. His decision-making, I think, is one of the big things that needs to be looked at. He needs to just look at the game from a complete 360-degree angle, look at what he's seeing, and not hesitate. Mistakes are going to happen. Tortorella emphasizes that. If it means you're going to make a mistake here and there, but in the long term, it's going to help your game to make those quick decisions just off of an instantaneous reaction, that's where hockey IQ comes in, is making those smart decisions in a flash. That's one of the things I tout so much about Matvei's game, is how quickly he makes those smart decisions. His brain's like a supercomputer. I look at Drysdale, and if he can become a better decision maker just in general, his game is going to become 10 times better overnight. It's going to build his confidence and elevate him more. His hockey IQ is where I look at him and says, if you can get this right and train him to make the right decisions in a quick reaction at the right time, you are going to see a complete brand new player. That's what it comes down to in a guy like this. So Drysdale, I'm not giving up on him. We mentioned going over the games this week, the last couple games, it seems like he's starting to find his game today. I thought, even though the Flyers as a whole did not play well, I thought he was one of the better Flyers out there. Him and Adrane, I believe, are the two best defensemen today. And I'm glad, as I've mentioned, they've given him a little more leeway. As you mentioned, they started double shifting him in the third period. Torch is showing a little bit more confidence to give him that offensive spark, hopefully. So we'll see. Hopefully, coming up on Tuesday against Carolina, we see that effort replicated. Yeah. But yeah, let's move on to another Flyer we had. This week's episode is called Ersson's Strong Week, and I wanted to talk about him. He obviously got injured today, so that kind of puts a little bit of a damper on this a little bit. But overall, the last two games he's played, shutout against Boston, I think he had, 23 saves in that one? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head without looking at my phone, but he had 20-something saves in that one. Only allowed one goal against the Blues, where he was pretty strong in that. The one goal he did allow, I don't think he could have really did much on. It was just a tough rebound when there was no defenseman there to clear the puck out. Walker ended up throwing into an empty net, so not really much on him. And he still almost got it. And then even before he departed today, he went 8 for 8 again. So overall, Ersson has put up over the last 2 and change games. He's put over a .950 save percentage. He's looked very good. There's a little bit of hesitancy to see if this guy's going to be a true number one in this league, including from myself. But you see sparks like this that you kind of saw last year too for a little over 2 months when him and Carter Hart were going back and forth where he wasn't getting run into the ground. He was getting probably about 40% of the starts. And he was looking pretty solid. Eric, let me hear your take on our good friend Sammy Ersson. What did you think of how he's played this week, and overall in general?
Yeah. Well, look. Overall, I think he's been really good all season. To tell you the truth, like other than I think the Minnesota game,
that's the only one
he had a bad game. That one, I have to say, I think he had a bad. It wasn't a terrible game, but he had a bit of a bad game. Yeah. 1 or 2 soft goals, but overall, like I thought he's actually had a pretty good season. And look, you saw against Boston, the first game against Boston, and then against the game against St. Louis. You see what he could do when there's structure in front of him.
Yes,
like all those losses that he had before. Like again, like I think we were talking before. A lot of the shots were because the slot was people, they weren't getting enough sticks in the lanes, they weren't blocking enough shots, and it would be off of shin, off a skate, off this, and like I understand, like, oh well, he doesn't make the big miraculous save. Well, like not every goalie is gonna make these big miraculous saves all the time. And look, actually, I thought like in the St. Louis game, that save he had I think it was like a minute left or something. He came up huge, this huge save like right before the game that actually kept them with the lead. So I think he's actually been really good all year. Now it's really unfortunate that he got hurt this game. Like I don't know, I don't know what it could be. Like they said lower body, so from what I saw, possibly a groin.
I hope not. That would suck.
Because there was right before, I think it was right before his skate blade, he made he extended his leg to make a save. So I go, maybe he tweaked his groin.
I hope it's just precautionary, personally.
Yeah, that's maybe he had he was uncomfortable and he didn't want to play through it just in case, because you don't want to because look, I've played goalie not organized, but I've played ice hockey, I've played goalie before. I've pulled my groin. And I played through it, and it's not fun. And then it hasn't healed since. We're talking about 20 years ago, and I still have a bad groin. So I guess maybe it was a precaution on his end. He didn't want to. It's just speculation. I didn't hear anything, but that's it. I think he's been solid all year. I have no complaints. And like I said, in the St. Louis game, he made actually a couple really big saves.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and look. The beginning of the game against Boston, the second game, he was solid. He was keeping them in there. The Flyers had no business being in that game, and he kept them in there. And then Posthoff came in relief, obviously, and I thought he was solid. But no, honestly, I can't say anything about Ersson. And tell you the truth, look, it sucks because 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 seasons ago, I'd actually bought a Carter Hart jersey. So I
gave mine away.
I'm thinking about getting mine unstitched and just putting Ersson in the back. So
not a bad idea.
I've always liked goalies, and unfortunately, as a Flyers fan, I've never had a goalie that I could get a jersey for. So I finally, you finally have it in Carter Hart, and then all that shit happens. So now I think I'm just gonna get it switched. I'm gonna get it redone. I'm gonna get it repurposed. I'm gonna put Ersson in the back.
What are my quotes? Always be drafting goalies.
Exactly.
ABG. Always be drafted. Actually, it's not my quote. It's someone from Twitter that says it. But always be drafting goalies. And this is why. Zavargin. Quick moment in on him. Zavargin, he looks good. This kid. I think he's got an even higher ceiling than Kolosov, to be perfectly honest with you. But
100%.
He's going to be something special. He's lighting it up in SKA.
Look, for a kid at 19 years old to be a starter in the KHL at a major, not for Sochi, for SKA. So that you got to be something special.
He's got something. They got something in him. When they bring out those top 10 goalie prospects again, his ass better be on it because he's the Flyers' best goalie prospect, bar none, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
But anyway, not to go too off track. Any final thoughts on Ersson?
No, that's about it. Just real good. Look, what can he be in the end? I think worst case scenario, the guy's a tandem goalie. Worst case scenario. But I think he's a legit starter in the league. I believe that. I believe it.
I will say this. I think he has the potential to be a legit starter, absolutely. I'm not 100% ready to say he is one yet. I need to see it from a consistent basis because he kind of really tailed off at the end of last year. Mind you, I'm not blaming him. This guy was getting 80% of the starts. And obviously, with the situation that happened in January with Hart, he went to the way of the dodo, and they were playing rotating friggin' backups who all sucked. Kolosov, not Kolosov. Fedotov comes in 3 games, and he was clearly not ready yet. You had hit after a month off in the KHL and thrown right into a playoff mix, and it was not good. And then obviously you had Peterson come in, who looked like a wet blanket against friggin' Pittsburgh, letting in goals left and right. So they didn't really have a choice but to run this guy into the ground. So it's good now they at least have, Kolosov, who looks like I think he's stepped up. So I would say hopefully this Ersson injury isn't bad, but to get back on track, I do think this kid has the potential to be a legit starter. And I think, as you mentioned, at worst, I agree that he's at worst a tandem goalie. I think it's probably 50-50 on which he's going to be yet. I think if you ask me this question again in 2 years, I'll have a better answer for you. But right now, I think I think it's a legit coin flip. Because one thing I've noticed about Ersson is he's streaky. When he's on, he's on. He's really fucking on. And when he's off, he's off. He can let up fucking 4 goals on 19 shots. Now, this year, as you mentioned, outside the Minnesota game, I don't think he's been bad. Like, he's had a few games, he's let in 3 goals, but then when you dissect the goals, how many of those you really blame on him? Not many. Like, that Edmonton game, he let in 4. I don't blame. I think maybe 1 I give him partial blame on, but then obviously the Minnesota game, he let in 5. What was the other game? I think he had one other game he allowed.
One of the Washington.
No, Fedotov was in on Seattle. So, yeah, that may have been it, that he's allowed more than 3 goals. But, yeah, I like what they have in him. And, I don't know if he's going to be the long-term future for this team. We'll see. I'm riding my horses on the Zavargin train whenever he's ready to come over. I think, but that's still a couple years out. I don't want them to rush this kid. He is going to be something special when he gets here, I think. But they need to make sure they train him right. But anyway, not to go too off track. Let's move on to next week, and then we'll wrap this up here. Next week's games, 3 road games, all against quality opponents. This could be terrifying. At Carolina, at Tampa Bay, at Florida. Carolina is Tuesday. Tampa Bay is Thursday. Florida is, is it Saturday or Sunday? I'm blanking on which.
Saturday. I'm at that game Saturday.
Yeah. You got to send us some videos of pictures for that. So that'll be fun for that. So give me your prediction, Eric. What their record is and what you're looking for.
That's a tough one because, like you said, we're playing 3 quality opponents. Carolina's looking good, if I'm not mistaken. They're 7-2 on the season so far. So, and they're just always good. Even with everything that they lost on defense, and like there's some of their secondary scoring that they lost in the offseason, you're like, okay, maybe they'll take a step back. No, they're just trucking along.
They're still good.
Tampa Bay too. Tampa Bay I thought would be a little worse than they are, and they're still top there, man. And Florida's Florida. So
defending champs. Not said.
Look, I
would beat them twice last year, though. I will say that.
True.
There's some credit there.
True.
They won both games in Florida last year. Who the hell saw that coming?
Look, if I have to say, I go maybe they win 1 of 3. Ideally, if they could come out with a 1-1-1 record in those 3, that'd be great.
That's a win.
But I don't know. The way they've been, like, look, if they could play the way they played against the first game against Boston and against St. Louis, they could squeak in 1 win, maybe 2. Just shutting those teams down. Then you know what? It's possible. But if they play today, I can't see it. If I have to say, okay, I think they lose this. I think they lose to Carolina. They win against Tampa, and they'll lose in overtime to Florida. I think that's let's say that.
That's fair. That's fair. Here's mine. I think so what I'm looking for is I need to see some offense. The offense needs an uptick. I don't know if that's going to be shaking lines up. I don't know if that means that Torts is going to ride their asses. Offensively, these guys need to wake up. That's my big takeaway. Every single player on this team needs to wake up offensively. I need to see it from the top six. I need to see it from the depth guys and maybe some defensive help. Offensively, these guys, I need to see a game. I want to see, this is my challenge for the Flyers next week. In these 3 games combined, I want to see them score a combined at least 10 goals. We'll see. I don't know. I want to see them put up at least. That's my personal challenge for them. We will come back next Saturday and see what happens. My prediction, I'm going to say I'm going to be pretty similar to you. I think they lose to Carolina. In fact, I think they're going to get mollywopped by Carolina. I think they're going to lose that one bad. I think they beat Tampa. I think they win that game in a shootout. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. They're going to win that game like 6-5. I will say Vasilevsky has not looked like Vasilevsky since his back surgery. And there might be some weakness in that in Tampa. I think that game's going to be like 6-5. I think the Flyers are going to win a shootout against them and shock us all. I hope it's better than the last time they were in Tampa because I went to that game and they lost 7-0 and I regretted my life decisions after that. And then the third game against Florida, I think they're going to lose a low-scoring game like 3-1 or something like that. I think, but yeah, I'll give them a 1-2 record this week. We'll see. Maybe they surprise us and win 2. I'm no way do I expect them winning all 3. But if they can, like you mentioned, go 1-1-1, that's a win to me. Yeah. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Eric, before we wrap this up?
Well, the only thing is I'm just curious to see what's up with Ersson, to see to finally hopefully he's fine. It's just a little tweak because like we said, look, the next 3 games are against some 3 top opponents, and I don't like. Let's say Ers can't go for the next week. Mm-hmm. If we have to ride Kolosov and Fedotov, Fedotov, I would think would get 1 of the 3. I'm assuming Kolosov would get 2 or Fedotov would get 1. Yeah, if Ers can't go, and my confidence isn't super high in Fedotov. Kolosov, I'm still we'll see. He's showed some good signs and he showed some weaknesses, so we'll see. But it's gonna be. I think the next week is really gonna depend on the health of our goalies. I think Fedotov gets the Tampa game. That ends up being the shootout that they win. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. Hopefully Ersson's all right. Hopefully it was just precautionary. Maybe they come out and say tomorrow, his testing came out good. He's day to day. They hold him out for that Carolina game. Maybe he comes back in Tampa. Who knows? I think he would have. I don't think he was going to play that Carolina game regardless, even if they ended up, even if he wasn't hurt. So I think it was Kolosov's shot to go regardless. I agree. I think they go 2-1. It'll probably go Kolosov, Fedotov, Kolosov. Jesus, we have so many Russians on this team now. But actually, no, Kolosov is Belarus. That's right. He's Belarusian. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, they're going to need some offense production if they have any shot of getting some wins this week. But with that being said, that's going to wrap things up this week. Eric, awesome show. Appreciate you coming on as usual. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, whole 9 yards. Don't Puck with Media, as you can follow on the link in the description to all of our other prior channels as well. Check out Don't Puck with Media's Pucking Around podcast. Any Bruins fans out there, check out the Hybrid Nation show run by my buddies Cam and Vogel. And check out the Talking Habs affiliate with us who run the Hab Normal show with our buddies Rick and Matt. Check them out as well if you're any Montreal Canadiens fans out there as well. But with that being said, thank you all for tuning in for another awesome show. 3-2 week from the Flyers. Overall, not too bad, but still feels like a down 3-2 if it feels like anything. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great, pleasant weekend, everyone. And let's go Flyers.